Good morning. I hope that you are at home and comfortable in your pajamas as you join us for worship. My name is Nick Moran, and I am the student minister here at Life Community. We are so excited that you have joined us here this morning. This is week 4 of us gathering together online, and we want you to know that we miss seeing you, but we are also praying for you. This morning is a very special morning for us at Life Community. Over the past several months, our church has gone through a series called Rooted, and it has been an opportunity to think about our future and what God has called us to as a church. Through the series, we focused on trusting God with our finances and our lives. Many of you made a commitment to give financially and to tithe and even offer gifts above those tithes. This is huge. And what we have seen is that even though you are in the midst of uncertainty, you are continuing to trust God with your finances. This is definitely something worth celebrating. So get your noisemakers ready and let's celebrate together. Don't forget to take a video of your family celebrating and post it on our LCC Connections Facebook page. Whichever video gets the most likes will receive a special prize in the mail. Let's make some noise.
All right, folks, it is time to talk about results of the Rooted Initiative. We are celebrating everything that God's done today, and so today's kind of the day to share where we are with numbers. The last 30 days have been uniquely unprecedented. Nobody expected this to happen, so that's kind of changed a little bit of our perspective. What we've got is we've had 91 cards that have been turned in out of the 150 or so that we were expecting, 147 family units that we thought were a part of this. Out of that means that 62% of our givers responded with a card. Those people that turned cards in, we were able to show and see from the data a 60% increase in giving. That is phenomenal to think about. And what the number is that's been committed through the Rooted Initiative over the next 2 years is $1,790,111. There have been many people been a few people that have been a little hesitant to put down numbers on paper because of everything that's going on. And I just want to say that's fair. I get it. I believe that we had some God-sized goals of what he was calling us to do with this Rooted Initiative. We talked about some big numbers and some big things that we were after, but really our number one goal is for 100% of our church to take a step of faith when it came to their giving. And I've spent some time praying about it, and while I'm disappointed that we didn't make these big, huge goals, where I am elated and where I'm excited and what I've seen is our people, our church, you, have been taking steps of faith with your giving, and that faithfulness in giving is going to allow us to make it through the next couple of months. I don't know that we could have done that without going through the Rooted Initiative. So I see God already at work in what's happening here. Next steps, what looks like and what comes next. We're going to let the dust settle a little bit, and we're going to get through this, and then we'll talk about things in the future. But I'm very excited about what's happened. And I just want to say to you, church, thank you for your faithfulness. This is a huge thing for us to celebrate. We won't say $1,790,111. What we're going to say is we've committed $1.8 million. And that's amazing to think about, this 60% increase in our giving from last year. There's never been a better time for us to be rooted in faithfulness to Christ than right now. We get to do that. One of the ways that we get to do that is by giving faithfully. Today is the day for us to have our best offering ever, for us to make these first fruits, rooted commitments. You get to do that right now, and today it is a rooted celebration. And so we're going to be letting you know how that goes. And over the next couple of months, we're going to be celebrating what God has done, what he's doing, and how we see it work, and how we are being faithful to what he calls us to do. Thank you.
Heavy thunder shall be impossible. Your kingdom reigns unstoppable. We'll shout your praise forevermore. Jesus, our God, unstoppable. Nothing shall be impossible. Your kingdom reigns unstoppable. We'll shout your praise forevermore. Jesus, our God, unstoppable. Nothing shall be impossible. Your kingdom reigns unstoppable. We'll shout your praise forevermore. Jesus, our God, unstoppable. Nothing shall be impossible. Your kingdom reigns unstoppable. We'll shout your praise forevermore. Jesus, our God, unstoppable. Unstoppable God, let your glory go on and on. Impossible things in your name, they shall be done. Unstoppable God, let your glory go on and on. Impossible things in your name, they shall be done.
This is Celebration Sunday. That means on the Rooted commitment card where you filled out stored resources that you were going to give, this is the day that we're collecting that money so we can celebrate what God has done in your lives. So you can go on our website at nogrowdo.com, and on the home page, you can see all the links where you need to click, and there's an online giving tab that you can click there. You can go straight to that page. We've waived all of our fees for online giving, and so you can go to that page and you can make that commitment today. If you don't want to do that and you want to mail something in, our address is 7240 Nolensville Road, Suite 207, 37135, Nolensville, Tennessee. We're really excited about the Rooted Initiative and what this means for our future. And your faithfulness in giving helps make this a reality. So thank you for your faithfulness.
Hi, I'm Katie Rusentel, the children's minister here at Life Community Church. Celebrating what God has done and will continue to do creates such excitement in me and gives me the hope that I believe we all need right now. Thank you to everyone who is participating in the Rooted Initiative. We are so excited to see evidence of God's faithfulness in our hearts and lives. Before Jay shares with us from John chapter 2, we are going to sing one more song. As we sing, please remember that starting today, all financial gifts go into our one fund, which will fund ministry as we save money for the future of our church. If you have a special financial gift that you are ready to give, today's the day. Just go to nogrowdo.com and click on the give link at the bottom of the screen. Let's continue to celebrate our faithful God and trust in the future He has for us.
For I spoke a word, you were singing over me. won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it, still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of
I've gotten to be a part of lots of weddings. I've counted, and I think I'm somewhere around 40 or 50 weddings that I've probably done over the last few years. And I love being there. I love everything about them. Some of them are really funny. Some of them are sweet. Some of them, looking back, are a little sad now. Whatever the case, I get to kind of be front row in these moments where they're making these commitments to God and to each other in marriage. And it's this beautiful thing. We get to hear the little giggles. I get to see the nervousness. I get to be right there kind of in that moment. One of the things that's my goal when I do a wedding is I want more than anything to not be remembered for having made a mistake. I don't want to bring any shame to anybody's wedding day. That's kind of my goal. There's lots of times where if a pastor does a great job, you really don't remember them. But if they do something wrong, if they say somebody's name wrong, if they mess up in some way, that's all anybody's going to be talking about. And you don't want to bring shame on a wedding day to somebody else. What we're seeing in John chapter 2 is a wedding day. It's that type of day on John 2. All the excitement, all the celebration, all the family coming together. But there's shame on the horizon. Let's take a look at John chapter 2 and verse 1. On the third day, there was a wedding in Cana in Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. Jesus also was invited to the wedding with his disciples. When the wine ran out, the mother of Jesus said to him, "They have no wine." And Jesus said to her, "Woman, what does this have to do with me? My hour has not yet come." His mother said to the servants, "Do whatever he tells you." Now, I love this interaction, number one, because we have to think about this for a second as a mother and a son. Mary is a widow, so Jesus is her firstborn son. So in this moment, when problems arrive, Jesus is the one that she goes to. She's not going to him as the Lamb of God, as the Savior of the world. She's going to him as her son. Do something about this situation. They've run out of wine. Now, this is a big deal. To run out of wine at a wedding is a big deal in this particular time. It could be so offensive that the other families that were invited to the wedding could sue you for running out of wine. So Mary looked to Jesus and said, "Do something." Jesus' answer is really interesting
because on one end, you read it and you kind of feel like he may be being a little sassy, but what he's doing is he's looking past the moment and he's talking about it in heavenly terms and significant terms. He understands a little bit of what she's asking, and he's basically saying, it's not time for me to reveal myself as the Messiah, as the Savior of the world. My time has not yet come. Now, you can kind of understand a little bit why Mary feels the way she does. Number one, there's love in the air. It's a wedding. It's really exciting. And not only that, but Jesus has showed up to the wedding and he's got disciples now. This development puts anticipation in her mind. She's really excited about Jesus and what he's about to do and how he's about to come forward as the Messiah. And so she's asking him as a mother, but it kind of moves in this next statement to a statement of faith when she says to the servants who are around her, do whatever he tells you to do. That's a statement of faith. That's an amazing kind of moment. Now, in the book of John, we're going to see these faith moments kind of happen where someone will come to him and they'll ask him to do something. And then what Jesus will do is he'll reject the request. But then there's this statement of faith. And upon the faith, that's when Jesus acts. And so what Mary does is she says, do whatever he tells you to do. Let's look at what happens next. Verse 6. Now there were 6 stone water jars there for the Jewish rites of purification, each holding 20 to 30 gallons. Jesus said to the servants, fill the jars with water. And they filled them up to the brim. And he said to them, now draw some out and take it to the master of the feast. So they took it. When the master of the feast tasted the water, now become wine, and did not know where it had come from, though the servants had drawn the water new. The master of the feast called the bridegroom and said to him, everyone serves the good wine first, and when people have drunk freely, then they drink the poor wine. But you have kept the good wine until now. This is the first of his signs Jesus did in Cana in Galilee, and manifested his glory, and his disciples believed in him. Now 150 gallons of wine is a whole lot of juice. This is a pretty significant moment in what's happening here. And you read this story and you kind of start to get into this, well, why do they need that much wine? I mean, what kind of party is this? Is Jesus liquoring everybody up for this moment? And that's important for us to understand. That is not the context of what's happening here. What's happening here is that in ancient times, in this moment, wine is a symbol of exhilaration and celebration. It's a big deal. You don't just go to the grocery and grab a little bit of wine. Wine is meant for grand moments, and this is one of those moments. Wine is meant for celebration and exhilaration. What Jesus has done is he's created 150 gallons of exhilaration. That's funny because today kind of marks Celebration Sunday. Now, it's a funny thing because no one really imagined kind of where we'd be today. Kind of feels a little bit like running out of wine mid-wedding. I've prayed about it. I've laughed about it. I've maybe cried a little bit about it. No one could have expected this. We had this goal, this dream of purchasing the town center. And as of today, April the 5th, it's not our time yet. And that's okay. Only God knows what will happen. So we're in this moment where we're trusting God to do whatever he calls us to do. What did happen in this story is this major step of faith. Mary's moment takes this major step of faith. And what did happen for us in our story, as we talked about the Rooted Initiative, is I saw family after family after family take amazing steps of faith. It brought me joy in my life to see the kind of commitment that people were making. And so although we haven't purchased the town center yet, what we have done is we've become rooted in God's love and his faithfulness, and we're grounded in that place where we're ready to do whatever it is that God is calling us to do. And that's always what Rooted has been about. So today is a day that we celebrate because we've been faithful. No one could predict what happened. It's happened. And so today we're at that point where we get to share what God has done in our lives, and we get to make that announcement. But I want you to hear me say that I am excited and exhilarated and so celebrating what God has done in our midst. Even though we didn't reach the huge goal, we have reached this goal where we're trusting God with our life. Weddings, Jesus, Mary, water to wine. This moment is something that can easily be mirrored in our lives. We want for us perfection. We want to have the perfect everything. We want people to think that we're amazing. And one of the things that sometimes can motivate us is shame. We don't want to run out of wine mid-wedding. We don't want to get caught not knowing what we're supposed to know. We don't want people to know the things about us that we keep secret and hidden because we don't want people to think less of us. We don't want to bring shame into our lives. We don't want to live in that shame. Shame can be something that motivates us. And what we see here in this story is the amazing thing that Jesus does is motivated not by shame, but by faith. Mary acted in faith. The beautiful thing about Jesus is that in the middle of who we are, our shame, our gross stuff, he knows us and he loves us. So much so that he lavishes us with his love. Take a look at what happens. I want to read this part again, okay? Verse 8, it says, and he said to them, now draw some out and take it to the master of the feast. So they took it, and when the master of the feast tasted the water, now become wine, and did not know where it came from, though the servants that had drawn it, they knew. The master of the feast called the bridegroom, and he makes this celebration, and the disciples have this great faith in Jesus because of what has happened. But there's this word that gets picked up a few times in those verses I read, in verses 8 and 9, and it's the word draw. The word draw is used to describe basically pulling up water out of a well. And so when you do that, when you're drawing it up, there's splashing, there's just this great amount of water that's moving around. And so when you think about it in this context, Jesus didn't just bring some wine to the table. He didn't bring just enough wine to be able to take care of the party, but he brought exhilaration and celebration, and the wine was splashing out everywhere in this lavish fashion. It's this beautiful thing to think about. And not only that, not only were there 150 gallons of it, but what the servant of the party is saying to everybody is, this is superior wine. This is the best wine that he's ever tasted. What an amazing thing to think about. In this moment, Jesus didn't just meet needs, but he poured out exhilaration and celebration and love. For you and I in our lives, what we deserve is sin and shame and separation from God. But what God does in his great love for us, he brings us Jesus. And it's not just this thing where we get to understand a little bit of who God is, but we get to experience this intimate knowledge of the creator of the universe. So you hear all this, and there's a little bit of a question of what we're supposed to do with this text. And I want to read Hebrews chapter 12, verses 1 and 2, but I want to kind of flip it. I want to read verse 2 first, and then I want to go back to verse 1. Hebrews 12:2 says this, then I, looking to Jesus, the founder and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is seated at the right hand throne of God. Now, I want you to think about that for a moment. What we deserve is sin and shame. What we get is Jesus. Jesus who takes on that shame. Jesus who pours out his blood to cover our sin. What we deserve is sin and separation from God. What we get is joy because Jesus endures our shame. What comes from this is verse 1, what we're called to do. It says, therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us also lay aside every weight and sin which clings so closely, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us. I don't know what the next couple of weeks are going to be like. I don't know what's going to happen next. I don't know what kind of things are going to happen to our country or the economy or the future. I don't know. This is what I do know. When we give our lives to Jesus, what we experience is forgiveness and joy. And what he calls us to do is to get rid of the things in our life that are causing us to sin and to stumble and entangle us from trusting him. And we are called to run the race for his glory. I don't know how long that race is, but we're in the middle of it. We're trusting God with our lives. And what's important to remember, it's not just that Jesus is good, he's superior. His love is poured out on us, and we're called to trust him with our lives no matter what happens. Now, here's the beautiful thing about today being Celebration Sunday and us celebrating Rooted. The whole point of it is for us to be rooted and grounded in God's love, his superior love. By us taking a step of faith and trusting God, what we're proclaiming is God's goodness, his greatness, and his glory. And we get to do that by showing how we run our race. And more importantly, just like Mary talked to the servants, for us, for you and I, we're called to do whatever it is that Jesus tells us to do. So I don't want you to spend a lot of time worrying about tomorrow. It's almost like worrying that you're going to run out of everything right in the middle. Instead, what I want you to do is turn to Jesus, ask him to help you with what's going on in your life, and then for you to be faithful to do whatever it is he tells you to do.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We hope that you enjoyed the service and that you are staying safe and remaining healthy. We look forward to seeing you next week. Grace and peace.